Broadcasting live from the Maelstrom on the plain of Alara, this is Tap Tap Concede.
We're slowly merging into one multicolored Jer-gram.
Jer-gram. Yes, in fact, it is Jer and Graham today. I am Graham, and
I'm Jer.
that is Jeremy.
Hi.
And it's going to be a little brief, fewer people, fewer minutes podcast this week. There's just a lot going on, and everyone's sort of in a bunch of different places. But we asked Jeremy to come in because you're a little bit more tuned into the sort of the nitty gritty of the rules than perhaps I am. And there's some new rules changes this week that we just wanted to touch on briefly. But first, real quick, we have, of course, our old school Crack a Pack. We decided, because we wanted to save time this week, we would go for a pack with less than 15 cards. In fact, fewer than 15 cards. In fact, fewer than, I believe, 12 cards.
There are 8 cards in that package.
I know there are 8 cards in this pack because this is a pack of the dark. The dark.
The previous, scary set. Mm-hmm. The horror set.
Don't be afraid of the darkness, but of what hides in the dark.
So I believe that the story behind this is like there was the Brothers' War between Urza and Mishra, and after that they sort of basically detonated like a gigantic magical bomb or something that caused the Dark Ages, which led up to the Ice Age. There was a whole chronology in these early sets that always sort of like fallout from the Brothers' War.
Crazy. Well, our first card is Banshee, which is 2 black for a 0/1.
It's some sort of crazy X spell, I think, if I recall correctly.
It is.
But yeah, that does not pass the vanilla test.
I think it passes any test. Listen to this. So yeah, for X and tap, Banshee does X damage. Right. So Banshee does X damage. Half of it rounded up to you, and half of it rounded down to any one target.
So what is the cost on that again?
X and tap.
So it's like a really expensive fireball that they have a turn to kill and also hurts you.
Yeah, it doesn't seem ideal.
And I would say not playable.
I would say not playable.
I mean, for the time, I guess the opportunity to fireball your opponent out, if you were ever playing Dark Draft, in which case I'm really sorry for you.
I don't think Draft existed when this existed.
Not really. It was sort of something that people did for fun at tournaments and stuff around Ice Age, as I understand it.
Well, next up we have Scarecrow.
Scarecrow. This is previous to the other Scarecrows from
the Shadowmoor, Lorwyn Shadowmoor, yeah. Shadowmoor Eventide, I guess. Scarecrow is a 2/2 for 5.
Again, like par for the course.
Yep, artifact creature. For 6 and tap. Until end of turn, all damage done to you by flying creatures is reduced to 0. Because he's a scarecrow and he's scaring away the birds.
That seems sweet. Your opponent's like aggroing you with flyers and you can cast your... Oh, wait, no, because you're paying 6 mana. So, no.
Yeah. All right, well, next up is Venom. For 1 green. All... Anything that involves the phrase all non-wall creatures, I love. All non-wall creatures target creature blocks or is blocked by are destroyed at the end of combat. So basically it's
Thicket Basilisk.
It's like Death Touch except against defenders?
It is against non-defenders.
Non-defenders.
It is literally the Thicket Basilisk ability. Now
the Oracle text is whenever enchanted creature blocks or becomes blocked by a non-wall creature, destroy the other creature at the end of combat.
That's interesting because like wall as a creature type used to mean like it had defender. It's before the defender keyword existed, but now that they've errated all those things, they've just kept it as wall instead of creature with defender, which is interesting.
Next up is Word of Binding.
This was like reprinted in core sets and stuff too.
It was reprinted in 4th edition, yeah. It is X black. X target creatures become tapped.
See, this is sweet. I think that card is great.
This
it
seems
an instant
fine.
Or a sorcery?
It's a sorcery.
Okay.
So it's not as good as, say, Gridlock, but this is the most currently playable card out of all of these.
It's certainly the most powerful.
Yeah.
That said, we were super excited about Venom when I was a kid. Put like Venom and Lure on a creature. And,
oh my god.
Yeah.
What? How can you ever stop that?
Wall of Wood.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Next up is Goblin Hero, with a weird art from the dark. Goblin Hero is a 2/2 for 3.
Like this is again, I still think Word of Binding is better, but this is one of the better cards we've seen.
Look at this weird Mark Tadine art.
Yeah.
Look at his weird like elbow spikes.
I have a Goblin Hero from Starter that's
misprinted as a rare.
Misprinted as a rare. It's super sweet. This one's in great condition though. I think I'd prefer to play with this one if I wanted to play a 2/2 for 3.
If you want it, it's yours. Next up, classic Pikeman.
Pikey.
1/1 for 1 and a white. Well, they got to have something good. Well, they got First Strike. Yeah, all right. What else do they have?
Good.
Well, they also have Banding.
Like, this card is powerful. It's deceptively powerful. A lot of it being like, if you're...
I don't know that it's necessarily deceptively powerful. I think it's just that no one knows what banding is.
Right, but like if your opponent doesn't know how to use or how banding works, then it sets you up to do some pretty disgusting things.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Make sure you're a little closer to the mic, I think.
Okay.
Let's move that sort of down, and I guess I should have checked this beforehand. Get that sort of nice and close in. You can get right up on that.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of face the camera.
Do the Liam Gallagher thing.
Yeah. Next up, Fissure, which is 3 red. Target land or creature is buried. Wow.
That card seems fine.
Destroy target creature or land. It can't be regenerated in red.
Yeah.
In red of all things. Color pie? What color pie?
Like
it's too early for the color pie.
I would take a turn. I would take a turn to Slag though, like in
absolutely
in Corset or Scars. So like that card actually seems fine.
Now, is this better than a turn to Slag?
This one?
The turn to Slag is 5. So, for reference, turn to Slag is 3 red, same casting cost for 5 damage to target creature. So it's not just unconditional destruction, but it does also destroy any equipment that creature is wearing.
I think I would prefer the Fissure.
I think so too,
because you get a destroy. Like just a straight destroy. It doesn't matter how big the thing is. If it's a 6/6, it's still dead. Mm-hmm. And you get this sort of like bonus occasional cut them off, some sort of greedy mana splash, which is good.
I'm sure you're doing in the dark draft.
I think you have to, because
you probably do, because everything's got weird double casting costs. We've had a red, a green, a black, and another black.
Yeah. And
then last but not least, it's amazing. It's tasty. It wants food. It is the carnivorous plant.
Yep.
It's a 4/5 wall for 4.
See, this card seems not terrible compared to some of the other cards we've seen. I don't know. So in that pack, are we just taking the Fissure there?
It's the Fissure or the Word of Binding?
Yeah.
Or nothing else?
I mean, Goblin Hero is, I think, 3rd place. But, yeah, I think we want the Fissure out of this pack.
Yeah, Goblin Hero, 3rd place. Nice. All right, well, that's our pick out of this pack of the dark. Which, by the way, just opened like a dream. It practically fell apart, possibly from age.
Yeah. Plastic on those old packs, not so great.
Not the most amazing. So, the main topic of discussion today is that they rolled out a whole bunch of rules change. Well, 4 rules changes.
Yeah.
Last week, which is not typical. The rules of Magic don't change often, but I mean, like the fundamental rules. Like obviously they're introducing new keywords and stuff all the time. I think
seeing these like yearly tweaks is relatively common. But
yeah, that's the thing is I'm seeing a lot of people act like this is something that's never happened before. So we'll get to the big one eventually. I think the one that's probably the least contentious and is the least exciting, I think, is the changes to sideboarding rules in tournaments.
Yeah.
Previously, you had to have your deck was either 60 cards or 60 cards with a 15-card sideboard.
Right.
So 75 cards. And when you sideboarded, you would take 1 card out and you would put 1 card in from your sideboard.
And I always got the impression that the whole exactly 15-card sideboard was just sort of so that someone could just come up and count your sideboard and figure out if you had sideboarded wrong, like quickly and easily. But I'm not entirely sure. The whole like it has to be exactly 15 cards or 0 cards was always kind of strange.
Yeah.
So this is going to stop a lot of problems.
Yeah, because now it is just that you can take cards from your sideboard and add them to your deck. So your deck has to be minimum 60 cards, but you can just be like, I like everything in my deck, but I want to add these 2 cards for my board.
Yeah.
And your sideboard is not limited by number now. It doesn't.
Right. It can be any number up to 15.
Up to 15, right?
Yeah.
So you don't get into situations where someone has 2 or 3 cards they want to sideboard, so their sideboard is those 3 cards and 12 basic land.
Right. If you're just like Naya Blitz is so good that I'm just going to run it without a sideboard, great. But if then you're like, oh, well, probably I should be able to take the Thalias out in case they're playing with Thalias, so then it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. So is any of this going to likely affect people who, the kitchen table player who's listening to our podcast? Unlikely.
No.
The land rule is a little interesting. This feels more like almost more like a clarification than like a real. I mean, it is
changing the rules.
It is changing it, but
it's one of those situations where like
get a little closer to the mic.
It's one of those situations where like people were playing it wrong, or people were like not playing it as intended, and so this is more of just like, okay, we're fixing it to make it actually work how people thought it worked. So what's going on here is like it used to be like if I play a card like Oracle of Moldiah or Explore that gives me an extra land drop in a turn. It used to be that I was supposed to declare when I played a land whether I was using the free play or not. So if I play Oracle of Moldiah as the example they gave, it's probably the best example. It has other abilities, but the relevant one is I get to play an extra land in a turn. If I then played a land, I would have to say, okay, this is the free land or this is my normal land. The thing being that if I play the free land and then somehow flicker or bounce or otherwise get that thing out of play and then back into play, it's a new Oracle with a new free play. Mm-hmm. So now the way that it works is you can play a land if the number of lands that you have played in the turn is less than the number of lands that you are allowed to play in that turn. So
you're always allowed to play 1.
Right. And then if I have an Oracle in play, that raises the threshold to 2. But only while the Oracle is in play.
And if you bounce and recast the Oracle,
then it goes from 2 back to 1 and then back up to 2. So
you can't blink your Oracle over and over again and cast additional lands.
Right.
All right. I really want to. It's so unfortunate that Surge literally leaves town today, because I would love to know how this affects his ridiculous fast bond Highlander deck.
I don't know. It affects my Elves deck.
Really?
Well, just in the fact that Oracle is in there as sort of a value card.
Right.
So definitely that thing sees a lot of play, and I have played a lot of lands off of that and Quirion Ranger. Not Quirion Ranger, sorry.
Dryad?
Nettle or Wirewood Symbiote is the card that bounces an elf to untap an elf. So you could you could play Oracle and play an extra land and then bounce the thing, untap your Priest of Titania, and then play the Oracle again, play another land, and it got kind of gross.
Again, unlikely to be incredibly relevant to the people watching.
Right.
But it's something that, maybe it'll come up. Who knows? The third one, I'm trying to remember now. I've gone completely blank.
Is it just the indestructible is a keyword now?
Oh, right. That was it. Yes. So indestructible is a keyword. So
hooray. I mean, I think, as they say, this is another thing that people were just sort of thought that's how it was.
And unblockable is not a keyword.
And never will be.
Yeah.
Or
it's just the creature is unblockable, not it gains unblockable. It's just, so the big one, though, is changes to legendary creatures.
Yeah.
Previously, most recently, the way that it worked was I have a Thrun in play, and then you play a Thrun, and then both our Thruns die as a state-based action.
Or if you're Jeremy, you have a very good record at a Pro Tour qualifier, and you, in fact, if you can win 2 more matches without losing another one, then you are top 8ing, and you are sitting looking at a Delver deck that's trying to play all these instants and sorceries, and you with your Naya Blitz deck play a Thalia and are like, yes, there is no way this Delver deck can beat me. In fact, you know what's better than them paying an extra 1 for every instant and sorcery they play? An extra 2. So I'm going to play another Thalia and bang my head against the table and lose.
Yeah, so that's another thing, is if I have a Thalia and then I play another Thalia, both those Thalias die.
Now, the change
is that the legendary rule basically exists the same as it did prior for each player.
Right.
So I can play a Thalia, and then you can play a Thalia, and they can wave at each other, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But then if I play a second one of mine
You choose.
of my choice
Yeah.
dies. So if I play a Thalia out and you were like, well, I mean, her ability is a triggered ability, or not really, it's a static ability.
It's a static ability.
But I'm going to arrest her anyway, because I don't want you attacking with her because she's a 2/1 with first strike. Then I play my second Thalia. I'm like, all right, well, the one that has arrest on it is going to the graveyard, and this new one is fine.
Yeah.
You can do that. So that's the big change, is that two of them can exist on the battlefield on either side of the actually for any player in multiplayer games, everyone can have their own Thrun or their own Geist of St. Traft. But Geist is legendary, right?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Good. And yeah, now Doug Bayer, who's part of the creative team, wrote on his blog that sure, maybe it's a little bit of a flavor loss because, there's not like there can be only one of this legendary creature thing. But I was talking to Paul about it, and it's also kind of a flavor win in a different way, because it doesn't mean that you can, or because it means that you can't use a clone, like a blue creature, like a clone effect, as indestructible hexproof removal.
Yeah, there was a lot of story that had to go into that, where like you created a fake version of the legend, and then like the legend's cohorts or something are like, oh god, you're not the real one, and they both kill each other at the same time accidentally. The flavor rules around that were getting a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, like it's change, and change is different, and I know that people don't like when the rules change, but the legendary rules changed before Kamigawa block. The legendary rules changed in R&D. Originally, it was going to be you could only have one of any legendary creature in your whole deck.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the rules will change again, but this seems fine.
So
it by the way, this also affects the Planeswalker uniqueness rule.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called. It's the same thing with Planeswalkers.
More or less, except for it's just like by type.
And
so,
Jace the Mind Sculptor's price shot up because you can no longer use your own Jace to remove him.
Right. I think that there's, like, on the good side of this rule, one of the things in Commander is that, like, if you sat down and someone else had the same commander as you, one of you needed to find a different deck. This fundamentally fixes that problem.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have a whoever deck... Rafiq deck, and I have a Rafiq deck, and we want to piss off everyone else
Exalt
at the table.
Everyone ever.
We can both play Rafiq decks, and that's fine. Which I think is just a win generally, because I will usually not carry around more than one commander deck for all sorts of reasons, right? Like, you don't want to necessarily bring all your really crazy foils and stuff to every tournament that you go to. That's maybe not the best plan. But so there's that, and then, like, I think that in general, this is going to make it so that, like, one of the things that they said was that they didn't like it when you had, like, you would play Geist of St. Traft, and then I would just play mine to kill it, and both of us sort of lose there because we're not actually either of us getting to use our cool creature.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I think it's weird also, and again, this is another win. This is another flavor win, but we're big fans of Vorthos and flavor here at Loading Ready Run. Is that it's weird to use a creature like you'd get people running Jace Beleren in their modern decks, or even at the time
in Zendikar,
in their standard decks, just as removal for Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah,
which is so dumb.
But let's look at this again. Assuming that they knew that the whole, like, I play a Geist, you play a Geist thing is frustrating and stupid for both of us.
Yeah.
One can assume that they actually, like, very carefully tried to ration out the number of legends that they used in order to avoid that situation as much as possible, or put legends in specific situations where they could avoid that as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't, we were minimizing that sort of, like, on both our parts when our legends blew each other up.
Yeah.
My hope with this rules change is now that they'll be able to enforce the sort of limiting factor of legends, that you don't want to play with a million of them in your deck on powerful cards, and not have to worry about the other repercussions of that. So a card like Thragtusk, for example, which is very powerful and is also like a 4-of all over the place. Mm-hmm. If he was legendary, that would dissuade any one person from putting as many of them in his or her deck, while not making us worry about
fearing that as soon as I play mine, you'll play yours.
Which in Thragtusk's case is actually not as terrible as a lot of other cards.
Okay, so bad example of the creature, but
you see what I'm saying? Like it makes it more likely that they will make those kind of cards legendary, which I'm in favor of. I think if you've got a really cool, powerful effect, making it legendary adds a lot of flavor and is a good sort of limiter in terms of how many people are going to jam into their deck.
Yeah, and what excites me the most about it related to that is that the last time they changed the legendary rules was right before Kamigawa block, which dealt very heavily with legendary creatures and legendary lands and legendary artifacts, and like that was a whole thing in that set. So I'm hoping that this means cool things for Theros.
That would be very cool.
I would like to see what they could do, because I mean, we've seen the picture of like the god, and I'm hoping, and we know it's sort of Greeky inspired-ish, and so I'd like to see some, like mythic heroes and gods and stuff. I think that'd be sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I hope that happens. So we have to call it there for right now, and I'm sorry that we had to blitz right through that podcast. I'm sure there was a lot more that we could discuss, but we wanted to at least get one out for this week and cover those rules as much as we could given the time. But we'll be back next week with a bigger one. We're definitely going to have Jer back on again because he's into the magics as much as we are, and
sometimes
we'll just need to
play a bit of magic cards.
Find room for a fifth chair, or just kick James out, because who needs James? And so thank you for watching, Jared. Thank you for zipping by on your way to your appointments, and we will talk to you guys next time.